And we're live. Hello, guys. Hello, everyone. Welcome. After a 3 month hiatus, we're finally back with a new episode of the FilmBrony Podcast. I am, of course, Nick Canino, the guy who's who's in charge of the whole podcast. But as always, I'm not alone on this one. I have a guest with me who started this whole podcast years ago. So, would you like to introduce yourself?
Well, I have to start by apologizing for the little hiatus that Nick and I have. The fact is, both of us had our respective lives to take care of, and yeah.
Yeah, that's why we weren't able to do another podcast for a couple months, but now we're back and we're ready to get started. And this on this podcast, I wasn't like pleased with like the way my last the last best of list turned out since it felt a bit rushed. So tonight we're gonna tonight towards the end of the show, we're going to present an updated list on what Søren and I feel are the best movies that we saw in 2022. So that'll be for later on during the show. But as of right now, let's get to our usual thing we usually do, starting with the Blu-ray Showcase.
Well, first, before I showcase my Blu-rays, I got a little thing to show you. So you guys may remember Pinkie Pie. My favorite Pony Plus. I got off Toys R Us as it was closing down back in 2018, and since then I managed to get the rest of the main six. So right here's Fluttershy. This is Applejack. Rainbow Dash, Rarity, Twilight Sparkle, arguably the leader, and I also got Cute Little Dennis just for good measure, just because.
Of course.
Anyways, a Blu-ray Showcase, American Movie.
That's a great documentary.
Away We Go. The Banshees of Feckin' in Sharon.
I love that movie.
Ben-Hur and the Ten Commandments.
Nice.
Black Adam. Blade Runner and Blade Runner 2049. Borat. Braveheart, Gladiator, and Saving Private Ryan. Castaway and Master and Commander. Cocoon. The Die Hard collection, and just because I have an extra copy, here's an extra copy for the fifth Die Hard movie in case anyone cares. Yeah. Dodgeball, Office Space, and Napoleon Dynamite.
Nice.
The Fablemans.
I have that too. I have that one too.
From Dusk Till Dawn.
Nice.
Glengarry Glen Ross.
That's a classic.
Hercules, the Dwayne Johnson version.
Much better Hercules than that piece of shit Legend of Hercules movie by Rennie Harlan.
So I've heard. I Am Legend and the Book of Eli.
Nice.
The Original Italian Job.
Nice.
Lyle Crocodile.
That's one of the biggest surprises from last year.
The Menu.
I love that movie.
Mimic. Nacho Libre, School of Rock, and Tropic Thunder.
Nice.
Paul Blart Mall Cop.
Not a terrible movie, but hey, at least I thought it was okay. But hey, at least it's better. At least it's better than the piece of shit second film.
So I've heard. Rise and Dawn of the Planet of the Apes.
Nice.
The Poseidon Adventure.
Nice.
7, Insomnia and the Devil's Advocate.
Nice.
Slither.
Sweet.
Star Trek and Star Trek Into Darkness.
Nice.
The Complete Sonic Boom Collection.
Nice.
Stuart Little 1 and Stuart Little 2.
Sweet.
Sunrise.
That's a classic.
Tar.
Tar was a great movie.
The Thief of Baghdad.
Nice.
Tail.
Till was excellent.
Violent Night.
Violent Night was a solid movie.
The Whale.
I have this one too.
Whisper of the Heart.
Nice.
I also got this huge Woody Allen collection.
Nice.
And last but not least, I have Young Sherlock Holmes.
All right, so I got some Blu-rays myself. This first one you're gonna be surprised by because it's not one, not two, but 3 John Wick movies.
Can't wait to see the 4th one.
Me too. Me too. Same here. Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Great.
Rocket Man.
Taron Egerton should have been nominated for that.
He should have. Richard Jewell.
Heard good things.
Very overlooked, honestly. Even for a Clint Eastwood movie. The Lighthouse, one of the best movies from 2019.
You're following me, Lobster, aren't you?
And welcome to the podcast. I'm Darius Lynn. I'm doing just fine. Thanks for joining us.
I'm okay too.
Next, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish.
I'll have to get both of those movies.
And finally, I may have shown the last 2, but you know what? Fuck it. The Whale and The Fablemans.
All right, that's it for our Blu-ray Showcase, and now let's get to some overdue movie reviews.
All right, so starting with Megan.
Yep, this was a surprisingly decent film. While it's not without its slow moments, stupid decisions, performances that range from solid to almost robotic, no pun intended, and an ending that felt a bit rushed, the concept, overall story, thrills, and special effects that look more expensive than they actually are make it worth seeing. So it's weird. The first film in January turned out to be not half bad for once. So I'll give M3gan the seal of accuracy.
M3gan.
Hey, if they can call the 4th Scream movie Screform or the Fantastic Four reboot Fan 4 stick, then do I have to finish that sentence?
Guess not. I really like this movie. This was the first surprise of the year so far. From really good directing, really good writing, a nicely executed story, to the acting, especially from crap. I have to look this up. Really quick. Allison Williams. From Allison Williams to Violet McGraw and Jenna Davis, who does a fantastic job. Either it's Jenna Davis or Jenna Davis. I'm sorry, who does a fantastic job voicing Megan, and Amy Donald does a fantastic job performing the Megan the did a fantastic job with the physical performance of Megan as well. And thank you, Matt Meadowland, fan 2004. Thank you. The score was very good. The cinematography is very good. The editing is good. There's some real tension and some good humor. I will say my only issues I did have with the film is that it does have some slow moments in the middle, and I do agree the ending felt a bit rushed, and there's this one false alarm jump scare that really got under my skin, and I'm just like, really, guys, really, false alarm jump scares are not scary. Despite this, though, I really enjoyed this movie. It is the first surprise this year so far, and the special effects on Megan was very good. Were very well done. This is one of those movies where it knows it's campy, but it knows how to have fun with it and how to have fun with its audience, and it does it and for the most part, Megan does it very well. So I really enjoyed it. 8 out of 10 or a B+.
All right, next up is a Gerard Butler movie called Plane, and this was just another generic action thriller from him. While the acting and action are serviceable, the characters have little to nothing to offer outside their archetypes, and the main character having a family to get to, which is totally original. It's kind of slow and takes a while for something to happen, and it was just an overall engaging experience. Not the worst action vehicle for January, but not one worth paying your money towards either, as I'll give it the seal mediocrity.
I'm not going to give it that grade because Plane was just all right. All I'll say is this: the acting is solid, especially from Gerard Butler, Tony Goldwyn, and Mike Coulter. It's nice. It's very well directed, especially with its action. With its action, the cinematography is good. The music is good, and the action sequences are very well done. Unfortunately, this is one of those films where it's basically you've been there, done that. I mean, we've seen movies involving planes and the subplot Søren mentioned earlier involving the daughter. Like yeah, that's like original. The writing was a mess since it's hard to care about any of these characters whatsoever, and the dialogue is very clunky as hell. The story felt cliched. The editing was a mess at times, and it suffers through a lot of pacing issues as a result of this. And the tone also felt a bit inconsistent at times too. Oh, okay, not the tone, but the villain felt so cartoonish and poorly developed. Like what the shit was that? What the shit was the villain? Like really? What the shit was that villain? Seriously. Yeah, overall, Plane has its moments. Does have some entertaining moments here and there, and it is well acted, but unfortunately, this is one of those movies where it felt cliched and just underwhelming. Not a terrible movie, but not a terrible movie. In fact, I thought it was just so, but it's not something I'll probably see again. So for that reason alone, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10 or a C+. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm only 3 movies in so far, and I've just seen the worst movie of 2023 so far. Okay. And the movie I saw that is the worst film I've seen this year so far is House Party 2023.
A movie that I flat out skipped on.
And you made the right decision to skip out on this one, because Oh boy, this is not just one of the worst remakes I've ever seen. One of the worst remakes or reboots I've ever seen. It's one of the worst comedies I've ever seen in general too. This, I mean, just wow. This was so unfunny throughout. Like, I only chuckled one time throughout the entire movie, and it was when one of the characters accidentally falls into the floor tile of a LeBron James's mansion, and then one other character says, "Well, he did." That actually made me chuckle. Otherwise, though, not one joke legitimately made me legitimately laugh. Not one single joke. From like, how should I put this? From like a joke involving like this stupid running gag involving a koala who like get we see an owner getting having his pet koala, and then it comes into play later on in the film, and then all of a sudden it starts getting high on weed, and it's all of a sudden doing drugs, and then for some strange reason it's like attacking a lot of people. Like, what was the joke? What the hell was? I was watching the whole thing. I couldn't help but think, what the hell am I watching? You know, what made the original House Party work was that the characters were in high school, and they felt charming and real and relatable. And best of all, there were a lot of hilarious and clever jokes. Now, I don't have a problem with a remake or reboot doing something different and having different characters. But when you have the characters in the remake and reboot be grown-ass adults who want to throw a party despite the fact that they're getting fired from their jobs and they're this unlikable, I'm sorry, but that's not relatable. That is not relatable at all. Along with that, worst of all, the third act all of a sudden abandons its plot involving a house party, and it's where Kevin and Damon and Kid Cudi, yes, Kid Cudi, the Kid Cudi, go to an adult Illuminati to find LeBron James' stolen ring. And as I was watching that scene, I was like, what is this? Is this House Party or a leftover deleted scene from Damien Chazelle's Babylon? Like, it wasn't good enough to be in Babylon for some reason. Yes, Nicholas Lee, LeBron James is in this movie. And I feel like this is the reason why this was made. Just LeBron James to show up his supposedly mansion and to just inflate his ego. That's what it felt like as I was watching the whole thing. And he just basically invited his friends and then basically slapped the title of House Party into the mix. Just, and you know what? Bafflingly, I was really like baffled at how the cinematography and editing looked like made for TV garbage. But then what I didn't realize is that it was originally planning to release straight to streaming on HBO Max until the studios decided to like dump it out at the last minute. Which is why I could not stand the cinematography and editing in the film.
Just a quick reminder that David Zaslav released this and the Velma cartoon, but canceled Batgirl.
And Meadowland Fan 2004 says, "Is it worse than LeBron James in Space Jam: New Legacy?" I think it's on par. either that or either Space Jam: A New Legacy is still a bit worse, or it's just on par with that film. Seriously, this movie hurt me. This was painful to watch. Painful to watch. The acting was terrible. It wastes Jacob Lattimore and Tassin Cole. And worst of all, this movie relied too much on cameo after cameo after cameo after cameo after cameo after cameo. Like whether it's like rap stars, actors, actresses, or like sports figures. Like, oh. And I already mentioned the jokes throughout the entire movie. There was not one single joke in the film that made me laugh, as I mentioned before. I already mentioned the koala stuff. The jokes in this, the rest of the jokes are just beyond juvenile and idiotic, with the overuse of crass and vulgar jokes. And I shit you not, the outdated political jokes involving the Black Lives Matter movement and Donald Trump. For the love of God, keep the political shit out of the movies. Yeah, and yeah, I could go on and on and on with how much I really hated this movie. Oh yeah, and by the way, LeBron James not only produced the movie, but he cameos in the film as well. And if you thought his cameo was, and if you thought he would like, and if you thought his acting would improve after he was awarded the Worst Actor award at the Razzies for his performance in Space Jam: A New Legacy, I'm sorry to tell you this, but he's the same old LeBron James over and over and over again. He has not improved with his acting. LeBron James is not an actor. He's a terrible actor. He's one of the worst actors working today. And he's just continuing to like inflate his ego, thinking like he's one of the best things in the world when there are way better basketball players than LeBron James, as well as way better actors than him. Yeah, overall, this is the worst movie I've seen this year so far. It's unfunny, it's idiotic, it's annoying, and it's not just one of the worst remakes I've ever seen. It's one of the worst comedies I've ever seen in general, too. Without a doubt, this is the first movie of 2023 to earn a 0 out of 10. Fuck this movie. Fuck this movie.
I'm so glad I skipped it then.
Yeah. Oh, and Nicholas Lee? Yes, it is worse than Uncle Drew. At least Uncle Drew had some funny moments in it. This was just painful. House Party 2023, on the other hand, was just painful to watch.
Yeah.
Oh, this was so bad. Once again, House Party 2023 gets a 0 out of 10 or an F. Fuck this movie.
Well, thankfully, the next movie is Missing. This, along with its spiritual predecessor Searching, are masterclasses in both storytelling and filmmaking. Following this young adult who's trying to figure out the situation when her mother goes missing without a trace, using her technology by any means necessary. Besides great acting and music, the editing on the computer screen and various screens is beyond superb, keeping you up to date with the story and at the edge of your seat. I don't understand why people think this isn't as good as Searching, because this more than holds a candle. So far, this is hands down the best film of the year, and it's gonna take a lot to top it. As I'll of course give it the seal of cinema.
I really liked Missing a lot. loved Searching. It was one of my favorite movies of 2018. And well, Søren, I'm sorry, but I feel that Searching was a bit better than Missing, in my opinion. Because my only problems I did have with the film is that there were a couple pacing issues in the middle, and I understand why this last part I'm about to mention. And for this last minor flaw I had with the film, I get why they wanted to do this, but I feel the movie took way too many twists and turns, throughout to the point where I was like, okay, you got me in the edge of my seat. I'm with so many twists and turns. Yeah, I get why they did that, but I think like one or two twists would be enough. Despite this, though, it's well acted, well directed, well edited, well shot for a movie on a computer screen. The story was very well executed. It's very well written, since the characters are brilliantly written, since the characters feel well developed, and it has some great dialogue. The acting, was great. Storm Reed was great as June in the film. This is a fantastic performance from her. This is one of the best breakthrough performances of the year so far. And even though I did say that excuse me. Even though I did say that the movie did have some twists and did have too many twists and turns, there was one twist that they did reveal about a certain character, which I will not spoil, towards the end of the film, and I was like, oh my god. This is easily, and the ending was very satisfying too. So yeah, this is easily one of the better films I've seen this year so far. Missing is intriguing, entertaining, and I found Missing to be intriguing and entertaining, and that's why I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10 or an A-.
All right, the next one is When You Finish Saving the World. I appreciate Jesse Eisenberg making this Ladybug-esque drama about the relationship between this teenager and the people around him, but the screenplay was kind of a mess throughout and kind of boring at times, with an obnoxious musical score. Maybe stream it once, but only once, as I'll give it the seal of accuracy.
When You Finish Saving the World was okay. The acting was fantastic, especially from Julianne Moore and Finn Wolfhard. I actually disagree with you on the musical score, because I actually really like the musical score throughout. The cinematography is very good. It's very well directed, and the editing and the film is like very well paced throughout, which I did appreciate. However, the movie was a mess, not just with its story, but with its writing, its editing, and the fact that the film felt a bit too short. Felt too short for 88 minutes, and the ending felt so abrupt. Yeah. So overall, When You Finish Saving the World is very well acted. It's very well acted, and it does have its moments, but unfortunately, this is one of those films that felt messy and underwhelming. So, like Plane, I'm also going to give it a 5 out of 10 or C+.
Next up is Infinity Pool. This is the kind of movie I was looking for in last year's Crimes of the Future. The story about a tourist who comes across this vacation spot where criminals get to buy clones of themselves to be executed for their crimes is an interesting one throughout. Brendan Cronenberg's direction shines throughout with a fantastic makeup, cinematography, and score. I will say there are one or two weird scenes that could have been cut, like that weird. If you saw the movie, you know what I'm talking about. And Mia Goth was fine in the first act, but got really awkward by the third act. But that's about it. This this is nonetheless a fun watch, especially if you're a fan of David Cronenberg's work, and I'll give it the seal of approval.
You mean Brandon Cronenberg?
No, I meant David Cronenberg, because Brandon is David's father, and he's pretty much
Right. That's what I think you meant. David Cronenberg's son, Brandon. So
yeah.
I love this movie. I really, really love this one. This is the first great movie that I've seen this year so far. I'm going to say this right now, though. This is not going to be for everyone, especially with the way the story's structured and the amount of practical effects, mostly the body horror elements that the movie focuses on. So, yeah. I'm going to say it's not going to be for everyone, but regardless, I love this movie. I really love this one. I was emotionally invested in the story due to how brilliantly executed it was. Brandon Cronenberg's directing was fantastic, and so was his writing, since it had great character development and great dialogue. The acting, especially from Alexander Skarsgård and Mia Goth, were fantastic. The musical score was fantastic. The cinematography was terrific. It's very well edited throughout. And the pacing, some people may be turned off by the pacing, by the slow burn pace, since it is a slow burn movie. But I felt the slow burn pace worked for me since it fit the tone and atmosphere of the film. And the practical effects and makeup used for the body horror elements, they were very, very well done, and there's some real tension, and there's some real tension with the scenes that play out, especially in the third act. I will say this though, my only problem I did have with the film is that I agree with Søren about that scene. It felt a bit unnecessary, and I get why it was there, but it kind of dragged a little bit, and I didn't think it was necessary. And I will say the ending I felt could have been a lot better. Like excuse me. I will say the ending felt a bit like underwhelming. Like there were I get why he did this, but it's just like I just felt it could have been done a bit better. Despite this, though, I really loved Infinity Pool, and I'm going to give it's another great work from Brandon Cronenberg, and I'm definitely going to give this a 9.5 out of 10 or an A.
Next, we have M. Night Shyamalan's Knock at the Cabin. Within the filmography that's either hit or miss, this is definitely a hit for M. Night. While the pacing and dialogue can be a bit much at times, this is nonetheless a tension-filled and surprisingly thought-provoking story about whether it's more worth it to save one family or an at times hateful world. The acting's on point, especially Dave Bautista, who's on the rise in his film career. I'd say definitely give this a watch, and as I'll give it the seal of approval.
Okay. M. Night Shyamalan has been a hit or miss filmmaker for me. Sometimes you get movies where he can really hit well, like where he could direct really good movies, like The Sixth Sense, Unbreakable, Signs, and Split. But then you get films where you don't even know what the hell he's doing. You don't even know what the hell he's doing. I mean, but then you get those bad movies that he's done, and it makes you question what the hell he was thinking with those, like The Happening, Old, After Earth, and the infamous The Last Airbender. Knock at the Cabin was okay. The first half had me intrigued, especially with its premise. But then when the second half kicked in, I was very disappointed. It is well acted and well directed. The cinematography is fantastic, and I really love the musical score. I did mention Split. I did mention Split. I enjoyed the visit, and Glass I thought was just fine.
I really like Glass myself.
Yeah, and without a question, the worst adaptation of a cartoon of all time, without a doubt.
And I haven't even seen the cartoon myself. I hear it's nothing so fantastic. And even then, The Last Airbender was awful.
Yeah, really. It's very well acted, especially from Dave Bautista, who is absolutely fantastic in this movie, and Kristen Cui, who really loved this film, who really was fantastic as Gwen. Like, this is one of the best performances from a child actor I've ever seen. The score was fantastic. It's very well shot for the cinematography, and there's some tension-filled moments here and there too. Where the film falters though is the second half of the film, where the story like crumbles and then just like gives up and then made the second half of the film such an underwhelming experience. And the writing really could have used some more work, especially with the dialogue. Seriously, the dialogue was atrocious. The editing was a muddled mess at times. There's a lot of pacing issues that the movie suffers through, and I did not like the ending at all. It felt very underwhelming, and I knew something was missing with that ending. And then without spoiling what happens, I read what happens at the end of the book. At the end of the book it was based on, and apparently they changed the ending. I won't spoil it for those who are interested, but once you see the film, you'll know what I mean. Yeah, overall, Knock at the Cabin was... It's well acted, well directed, and it does have some intriguing moments here and there. Unfortunately, this movie was a mess. 5 out of 10 or a C+. Oh yeah, my Nets movie. Oh boy, this film. What happens when you take four great actresses and have them star in a movie where it not only feels like a made for TV movie, but feels like it was made just for like Tom Brady to inflate his ego. You get 80 for Brady.
This was the second time a ex-athlete makes a movie to exploit his or her ego. First with the House Party, and now with 80 for Brady. Inspired by
true events. Inspired by true events. 80 for Brady follows 4 lifelong friends, played by Lily Tomlin, Jane Fonda, Rita Moreno, and Sally Field, who traveled to watch Brady and his New England Patriots play in Super Bowl 51 in 2017. This was a chore to sit through. I feel bad for saying that because at times it can be kind-hearted, and there is a good message on how you only have one chance to live a life, and you should enjoy it for what you have. There is a good message in there, and I love the 4 main leads in the film. Like I said, Lily Tomlin, Jane Fonda, Sally Field, and Rita Moreno were all very good in the film, and they had some really good chemistry in the film too. And most of the acting is fine too. Most of it. And speaking of the chemistry, it does make you believe that these ladies that the actresses are playing are really friends. I laughed at 25% of the jokes, and when I did laugh at those jokes, it was mostly on Rita Moreno, who had some really hilarious who had some really hilarious deliveries that she was given throughout. The score is solid, and the cinematography is very good. So what did I hate about this movie? Well, that involves its story. It tries to be inspired by a true story involving these four ladies who went to the Super Bowl, and yet this movie felt like a made-for-TV movie where it was just like, hey, let's have a bunch of old ladies like all of a sudden do some funny stuff and just like have it not make any sense. That's literally what it was as I was watching. That's literally what it felt like to me as I was watching 80 for Brady. And
so I guess it's like the book club of sports movies.
Yep.
Now looking forward to that sequel in May.
Fuck my life. Anyway, as I was saying, 75% of the jokes fall very flat, especially since it keeps like doing cringy jokes just for the sake of it, and sometimes jokes that just drag on and on and on. And worst of all, we're appealing to the lowest common denominator because we're gonna throw in a dabbing joke. Like let's have one of the old ladies dab in front of people. And if you're wondering, Nicholas Lee, I don't hate him as a person. I don't hate him as a person. I just think he's overrated. I just think as a former player, he's overrated.
I wouldn't know because I don't really follow sports. And with that dabbing joke, there aren't enough sides from Lucy Loud that could contain how cringe that was.
Yeah, really. The editing is terrible. The writing is shit. And worst of all, there are some things I got to get off my chest that I have to spoil a bit of. Speaking of the acting, even though I did say most of the acting was fine, you get like Guy Fieri playing himself in the film, and Jesus, he looks so bored to be in this movie. But the worst actor in the film is easily Tom Brady. Like, oh my God, was he so shallow in the film? His voice, his acting was just nothing but just wooden and shallow. It felt like he didn't even try at all. And worst of all, Rob Kornowski, one of the former players of the New England Patriots, one of the former tight ends of the New England Patriots, said in an interview that this was the most prominent role that he had in his life, when really he only had one scene at the end of the film, and he only had 3 lines spoken. Like one of them saying, "Hey, yes, Nicholas Lee, yes, Rob Kornowski. He only has one scene at the end of the film in the locker room, and it only has 3 lines, and that's it." Talk about false advertising right there. And, okay, there's this one thing I also got to get off my chest, because this scene really pissed me off. So, these 2 scenes really pissed me off. So, after we find out that the tickets that Lily Tomlin's character bought, like one for her friends were fake, since she bought them off the internet, they all of a sudden get it. You're not gonna believe this. Goo, played by Billy Porter, to like get them into the game. And when another security guard like stops them from going, what do the ladies do in order to let the security guards to get them in? Do a little dancing show. I'm not making this up. They do a little dancing show just to impress the security guards and let them in to the dome. I mean, to the stadium. I can't make this shit up. Oh, and this other scene really pissed me off too. So when, and here's this other scene that I'm about to mention. When Dan, played by Harry Hamlin, has the security guard stops the security guard from taking the ladies out of the stadium, and they're up in this booth where they can watch the game from there. All of a sudden, they sneak into the Patriots offensive coordinator's room, and then Lily Tomlin's character all of a sudden steals one of the headphones from the offensive coordinators, and then gives out an inspirational speech on how she wanted to let Tom Brady win and just believe in himself, and the fact that she wants the Patriots to win. This is why I had a hard time believing that this was inspired by true events, especially when I don't even recall all those things being just absolutely true, absolutely accurate. When all things are just made up and like a person's head. You know, say what you want about The Woman King. The Woman King at least was an entertaining movie, and sure, it may not be accurate, but it was more entertaining. It was more entertaining compared to this garbage. And best of all, it was more well made. I can go on and on and on with how much I really despise 80 for Brady, and I really don't want to despise this movie because I know it's not made for me. I know I'm not in the right demographic for these types of movies, but I cannot excuse a movie that is so poorly made and just that feels so made for TV like esque and just has a movie that is just completely unfunny throughout for the most part. I'm sorry, but this is a 3 out of 10 or a D+. And to think that this was directed by Kyle Irving, who was in one of my favorite movies of 2020, The Climb. Let's just move on to the next film.
All right. As soon as my phone, as long as my phone starts cooperating.
Oh boy. Well, I could just talk about the next film, which is Magic Mike's Last Dance, and it's the third and final.
Oh yeah, I got it.
It's the third and final installment of the Magic Mike trilogy, and
oh yeah, I got it. I saw Magic Mike 2. I saw Magic Mike's Last Dance. Now, the previous Magic Mike movies I thought were completely dull. The only things I felt were going for them were some of the dance scenes as well as Matthew McConaughey's performance in the first movie. But this movie tries to give us one last hurrah for this franchise, even though technically the last movie already did it. And this movie was just not interesting. Like, all the singing and standing around and talking took up the first 85 minutes, and all the dancing went save for the last 20 minutes. And as a result, it was just a slog to sit through. And I completely forgot about it not long after the credits started rolling. Just skip this one and I'll give it the seal of mediocrity.
Yeah, I'm with you, Søren. While the film is well acted, especially from Channing Tatum and Salma Hayek, who delivers some very good chemistry in the film, And the film does have a solid a good cinematography, soundtrack, and the best part being the dancing sequences, even though they're like at the end of the film. This movie was such an underwhelming mess. This movie was such an underwhelming like finale to what was I feel was a mediocre trilogy. I mean, the first film I really wasn't a fan of. Second one was just fine. Third one is easily the worst. Is easily the worst of the three. The story goes up. The story's a muddled mess. It's poorly written, poorly edited, poorly paced. It's filled with cliches that you've seen in other films before, and the ending felt so rushed. Yeah, skip this one. 3 out of 10 or a D plus.
Next up is Marlowe. I'll give Liam Neeson credit for trying with a film that's not another old man getting too old for this action shit movie, but his efforts are still wasted on a script that's just not good. I'd recommend the direction and production values for making this look like one of those mystery films from the 30s and 40s, but this was just a snooze to sit through. Like I couldn't tell you the plot to save my life. Obviously, wouldn't recommend this, as I'll give it the seal mediocrity.
I didn't like Marvel either. I didn't like Marlowe either. The only good things in the film are that Liam Neeson, Jessica Lange, and Danny Houston do deliver some very good performances. The film also has a good musical score, great cinematography, and great production values and costume design. But unfortunately, the story goes absolutely nowhere. It's poorly written, poorly directed. The rest of the acting was mediocre, especially from Diane Kruger and Alan Cumming, who are horribly wasted in this movie due to how poorly written their characters felt. It's clumsily edited, poorly paced. It's filled with cliches that you've seen in other films before. There's no tension within the scenes, within the mystery aspects, since it's also very predictable too. So, and the ending felt very underwhelming to say the least. So, yeah. Another 3 out of 10 or a D plus.
All right, as for my next move.
Oh boy.
I'll be honest. When this movie was announced a nanosecond, the Winnie the Pooh books became public domain, I was intrigued to say the least. Hearing about Pooh and friends becoming psychopathic murderers sounded like a hell of a good time, even in a so bad it's good kind of way. But upon seeing this movie, I can confirm that this movie is so bad, it's horrendous. Now look, I grew up with the Disney version of the Pooh movies, like a lot of people, but I can take a joke in terms of a horror parody. But the problem is that this isn't even a funny one. Like, from the opening narration depicting the backstory told through this animation, I knew I was in trouble. So basically, Christopher Robin spent his childhood hanging out with Pooh and Company in the 100-Acre Wood, and even bringing them some food. But when he went away to college, the animals were without nourishment, especially in the winter. So they resorted to cannibalizing Eeyore and turned into senseless killers. And this is the first problem with the movie. The movie claims that the animals were living peacefully in the forest until Christopher came along, but it also claims that in this vast 100-acre wood, which is in the very name, there isn't any food anywhere for them to eat. They just rely on Christopher to bring them nourishment. And whatever kept them nourished until Christopher appeared, they failed to store in their home for winter. So really, I don't blame Christopher for turning them insane. I blame their own stupidity. Now we get to the second problem, the story. As in, there's no story. Sure, Christopher brings his fiancee over to the forest, assuming Pooh and his friends are still happy-go-lucky and friendly, or only for them to get captured and tortured. But then we get to these slasher movie targets, I mean, real teenage characters, vacationing in this nearby cabin in the woods, only for them to get picked up one by Pooh and Piglet. Literally, the only
Are
person
you
with a real
shitting me?
Literally, the only person with a real story arc is Christopher trying to make amends with Pooh to no avail. And to say this movie looks cheap is an understatement. The line is just obnoxious. Like, it is so dark a lot of the time that you can barely make out a thing. I know this is a cheap slasher flick, but that's not even close to an excuse.
No, it's not.
Plus, the costumes look like they were just bought at the party store, and the faces especially look expressionless and dumb. Pooh especially has that dumbass permanent grin on his face, like he took too much of that Smilex from Tim Burton's Batman. Like, there's a scene where he reminisces about being with Christopher as a young boy, causing him to tear up a bit and then to a temper tantrum and let out on the tool table. That scene was just ruined by that stupid ass grin on his face. Overall, why does this movie exist? Why does it have the Winnie the Pooh name in the title other than marketability? Why is this getting a sequel, let alone a cinematic universe in the future? Point is, this movie is the worst kind of bad, and that is dull and depressing. Even if you're the least bit curious, it's just gonna waste your time, and I'm gonna have to give it the seal of rage solely for what it represents.
Wow. I mean, I've heard a lot of like really bad shit in my life, especially when it comes to movies, but this this is like one of the most unbelievably and bafflingly insane things I've ever heard in my life. Like, what the fuck?
And again, I can take or adult parody of a beloved children cartoon. Just look at the Pony Dot Mauve on YouTube.
Yeah, really. All right. So before we move on to the next to Søren and I's next review, my next movie I'm going to talk about is Sharper. Now, Sharper stars Julianne Moore, Sebastian Stan, Justice Smith, Brianna Middleton, and John Lithgow, and it's about how motivations are suspect and how expectations turn into chaos as a con artist takes on Manhattan billionaires. I really enjoyed this movie a lot. I really enjoyed I really enjoyed their the writing was solid. Oh, okay, hold on. Let me adjust that. I was invested in the story throughout since it was nicely executed. The acting, especially from Julianne Moore, Sebastian Stan, Justice Smith, Brianna Middleton, and John Lithgow were very good. It's very well directed. The musical score is good. The soundtrack is very good. The cinematography is great. It's nicely edited throughout. And I thought the ending was pretty solid overall. Now, the only problems I did have with the film is that I did feel that the script could have used some improvement on the dialogue, and it does suffer through some pacing issues as a result here and there too. But as it is though, I thought Sharper was an entertainingly good movie. So 8 out of 10 or a B+.
And now we get to one of Nick and I's biggest disagreements so far this year. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. To me, this was a good but not great start to Phase 5. It's mostly well directed and well acted, especially Paul Rudd and Jonathan Majors. The action scenes are fun, and it gave us the right amount of conflict in terms of introducing Kane to the film side of the MCU. However, there are some issues I have. For starters, the beginning part of the adventure was a bit rough to get through, although the pacing and visual effects do get better as the film goes along. Especially the effect on Mr. Electric's half-second cousin, MODOK, did need some getting used to. And I kind of had a problem with the ending, which I'm gonna have to issue a spoiler alert. So if you haven't seen the movie, mute
Do it.
this podcast right now, and when this when it gets back to my face, then you can unmute it. So basically, after the guys defeat Kane and are about to take the portal home, Kane suddenly reappears to give Emma and the Wasp one last fight. So they defeat him once more before the portal closes with them in the quantum realm, only for Cassie to repair the portal in 2 seconds and get them back home. And in the conclusion, we get a closing narration from Scott Lang where he basically said, "Wait, something tells me Kane is going to come back and take over the world. And it's probably nothing." All for the credits seem to confirm, yeah, Kane is going to come back. So yeah, that ending was a bit lame. But aside from that, this was an otherwise fun as hell installment in the MCU and a decent stuff for what's to come, and I'll give it the seal of approval.
You already know what's coming. You already know what's coming. I hated this movie. I hated this movie so much. When I saw Thor: Love and Thunder last July, I really thought it would be the worst Marvel film I've ever seen in a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie. I was dead wrong. In fact, not only is this the worst Marvel Cinematic Universe movie I've ever seen so far, it's one of the lousiest and most reprehensible movies I have seen this entire year so far. I guess the only redeeming aspect I found with the film is that Paul Rudd, some of the acting, including from Paul Rudd, Jonathan Majors, Michelle Pfeiffer, and Michael Douglas, was good. And the movie has a solid musical score by Christoph Beck, and the cinematography is very good. But that's it. I mean, with the cinematography, of course, you know it's going to be great, especially if Bill Pope is the director of photography with that. But otherwise, that's it. Everything else was terrible. But it could be summed up in 5 different words. I don't give a fuck! From its story to its characters, to its writing, to its dialogue, to its directing, and to its editing, to its action sequence, and worst of all, to the visual effects. Like, holy shit. I thought Thor: Love and Thunder had the worst visual effects I've ever seen due to how rushed they felt. I was dead wrong. Oh my god. Like I'm gonna have to pull this up. I'm gonna have to pull this up on my computer because to show you how bad like the visual effects are, because this is absolutely inexcusable and embarrassing that they thought this was a good idea. Let me just find this real quick. You'll get what I mean, because like, what were they thinking? Especially with the design on MODOK.
You people get a load of this.
Like, okay. All right. Here it is. Oh. Sorry. Hold. You know what? I'm gonna have to put this image in the discussions. Because like Ah, crap. Sorry about. Oh, shit. Hold on. This damn computer, man. Søren, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hear me? Okay,
Yeah,
good. Sorry about that, guys. But okay, let me send this image into the description. I mean, into the chat, because oh my god, like, oh my god, unbelievable that they thought this design on Modok was a good idea. Like, he looks like if Humpty Dumpty had a brain dead cousin. That's how bad he looks.
Mr. Electric, send him to the principal's office and have him expelled.
He's like, for real. What are they thinking? Actually, hold on. Wrong. Like, he literally looks like Modok literally looks like if Humpty Dumpty had a brain dead cousin. That's how bad Modok looked.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was awful. The jokes were unfunny. It's poorly paced, poorly edited, and the visual effects were just absolute shit. And the ending felt so underwhelming, to say the least. Yep, this is my new least favorite of the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. This is a new low for Marvel. A new low for me. This is a new low for Marvel. It is one of the lousiest and most reprehensible films I've seen this year so far. And without a doubt, it's getting a 2 out of 10 or a D.
Seeing you talk about this movie and talk about its faults makes me reconsider my rating. Now, I know I'm basically doing what G. Siskel did in his Broken Arrow review with Roger Ebert, but I think I'm not gonna change my seal for this movie. In fact, I think I'm gonna take Ant-Man 3's rating and M3gan's rating and just kind of switch them. Because really, as flawed as M3gan was, at least it was a more satisfying experience, and at least it had some solid social commentary and facts. And
yeah, really.
And even if Black Panther was only 6 out of 10, it at least had great performances, especially from what's her name, as well as some great visuals. So really, what am I defending here? Some colorful action sequences, and they are colorful. Don't get me wrong.
True, but it didn't save the whole thing though, for me, at least.
Yeah.
Before we move on, I'll talk about my next film, which Søren didn't see, but I did see. It's called Emily. And Emily is basically a part fictional portrait of English writer Emily Bronte, played by Emma Mackey, who wrote Wuthering Heights. And it is concentrating on a fictional romantic relationship with his young curate William Waitman, played by hold on. Let me look this up really quick. Wish I had come prepared for this one. Hold on. William Waitman, played by Oliver Jackson Cohen. I enjoyed Emily. I really enjoyed Emily. It's well acted, especially from Emma Mackey, who gives out a fantastic performance in the film. I mean, a powerful performance. and all the other actors, including Fionn Whitehead, Oliver Jackson Cohen, and Adrian Dunbar, were fantastic. It has excellent production values and costume design. The cinematography was fantastic. The musical score was very good. The story had me invested throughout. And the writing and directing I thought was solid. However, what kept me from loving this movie is that I did feel the film was a bit was the pacing. Now, I don't mind slow burn pacing movies at all, as long as it pays off. But in Emily, there were some like scenes that just dragged on and on and on, and I did wish I did wish they would have cut like 15 minutes of the film down. And also the editing, yikes! Like, I'm not even kidding. Like there were times where the movie just cuts to black and then cuts to the next scene, cuts to black, and then it just does it again and again in some parts, and it was really aggravating. It was a bit frustrating, to say the least. That's why I couldn't quite love this as much as the critics do. But despite that, I really thought it was a really good character study portrait of a writer. I thought it was a good character study portrait. So, yeah, 8 out of 10 or a B plus. Oh wait, actually 7 out of 10 or a B, because I did feel the writing could have been better, with mostly with its dialogue. So yeah, 7 out of 10 or a B.
Well, we talked about one shitty killer bear movie. Now we're going to talk about another, Cocaine Bear.
Oh my God.
And I'm just going to get right to the chase. This movie blows.
Yeah, apparently, really, it does.
Apparently, this was quote-unquote based on a true story, which I don't believe for a second, because there's no way none of this shit would even happen. It's like Elizabeth Banks saw the news of this bear finding a bag of cocaine and then succumbing to an overdose and said, hey, you know what would make it better? What if I turn it into a dumbass slasher movie? It's got some of the worst characters that are just there to be chow for the bear, as they are both too bland and or obnoxious for you to care about them. The comedic timing is mostly non-existent. Not to mention the special effects and physics are practically non-existent, as there's no way this many drugs would turn a wild animal into a ruthless killing machine, let alone revive it after it fell 40 feet from a waterfall. Yeah, that's an actual scene in the movie. Honestly, what even is this movie? Why did I even watch it? Why was it so successful at the box office? And why is it getting a sequel? The important thing is, this movie gets a seal of disapproval, and it's by far one of the most overrated films of the year so far.
I wouldn't say overrated, but rather overhyped.
Well, it does have a 70-some rating on Rotten Tomatoes, so...
Actually, it's a 60... Let me check this really quick. It has a 67%, actually.
Ah. Fair enough.
Yeah, I really dislike this one too. I mean, most of the acting was fine, especially from Alden Ehrenreich and O'Shea Jackson Jr., who were easily the best things in the whole film. And there are some good performances by Margot Martindale and Brooklyn Prince too. Most of the acting was just fine. The musical score by Mark's Mothersbaugh was solid. The cinematography is great, and there was one joke that I actually did laugh very hard at, and it was when I know I'm spoiling this movie, but I don't care. We really don't like this movie, so we're just gonna have to spoil some things. Anyway, one scene that did make me laugh this hard, it was when Margot Martindale's character accidentally shoots the guy instead of the bear. That was actually the only scene that made me laugh really hard throughout the whole thing. Otherwise, God, this movie was a pain to sit through. The story felt half-baked and uninteresting and a muddled mess. The script is terrible. It's filled with some of the worst characters and some of the worst dialogue I've ever heard in the movie this entire year so far. It's clumsily directed by Elizabeth Banks. Yes, the Elizabeth Banks. The same. Now, Elizabeth Banks, I feel, is a good actress. But as a filmmaker, no. She directed the mediocre Pitch Perfect 2 movie, and directed one of the worst movies of 2019, which was Charlie's Angels. The Charlie's Angels reboot. And here's what I'll say about Cocaine Bear. It's not as bad as the Charlie's Angels reboot. But regardless, this is a poorly directed movie. And while I did say most of the acting was solid, Ray Liotta was horribly wasted in this movie. In this movie, he's only in the beginning, and then towards the end of the film, and then towards like the climax of the film, and then that's it. That's it. You never see him again throughout the entire film. You never even see him in the middle. Like, he's only in the beginning and then in the third act. That's it.
And to think this is one of his last movies.
And to think this was supposed to be a dedication to Ray Liotta. Yeah, it's a dedication, all right. When you literally wasted his talent, you cheap cretins. It's clumsily edited. Poorly paced. You don't give a shit about any of the characters in the film since they all feel paper thin and poorly developed. Oh, and when we do see the bear, it is poorly done in CGI. Like, oh my God, the CGI on the bear is so poorly done. Like, to describe how bad the CGI is, it's like if the designers made rediscovered a visual effects program from like the early 2000s. Like, I'm not even kidding. The bear looks like it belonged to like the late 1990s or in the early 2000s. That's how bad this thing looked. That's how sloppy and half-assed it looks. And the tone is just all over the place. It can't even decide if it wants to be a dark comedy or a thriller. Now, I don't mind two genres like balancing. Now, I don't mind having two genres in one movie as long as you do it well. Do it well. Like, look at my favorite movie of last year. Look at Everything Everywhere All at Once. That movie combined a lot of genres together into one movie, yet it worked so well because of how well executed the story felt. But in Cocaine Bear, it can't even decide if it wants to be like a dark comedy or a thriller. When you have a movie that can't decide what it wants to be, that's a problem. Yeah, Cocaine Bear was just an unbelievable mess. It's one of the dumbest movies. Overall, Cocaine Bear was just ungodly dumb. And a chore to get through. This is one of those movies where it's stupid just for the sake of being stupid. It can't decide what it wants to be, a comedy or thriller, and by the end of the film, it left me so frustrated and irritated. And it's one of the dumbest and most annoying, boring, and frustrating films I've seen this year so far. 3 out of 10 or D+. I sat through that.
Yeah.
And now I have another next film I'm about to talk about. It's let me look this up real quick. Our next film is a faith-based movie called Jesus Revolution, and it's based on the book of the same name, where we follow youth minister Greg Laurie, played by Joe Courtney, Christian hippie Lonnie Frisbee, played by Jonathan Roumie, and Pastor Chuck Smith, played by Kelsey Grammer, as they take part in the Jesus movement in California during the 1960s. Now, I was kind of interested in this one. Despite how I feel about faith-based movies, I was kind of interested in this one just because Kelsey Grammer was in it, and the story did kind of have me invested, did kind of have me interested. And the story of the film did kind of have me interested. And here's what I'll say about the film. The film is very well acted, especially from Kelsey Grammer, who gives out one of his better performances in the film. The cinematography is fantastic. I like the soundtrack and the production values and costume design, and it's a very well-directed movie. Unfortunately, this is one of those movies where, unfortunately, what we have here is a movie that is well-intentioned, but unfortunately, what we have here is one of those movies that is well-intentioned, and well-acted, but underwhelming with its execution. The story felt messy. The script was a mess. It contained clunky dialogue and bland character development. The editing was sometimes all over the place. It's poorly paced throughout, and it's filled with cliches that you've seen in other films before. And let me just get this off my chest for a bit with this last problem I have with the film. I don't have a problem with people expressing their religious beliefs. I don't have a problem with that. People have the right to express their whatever religious beliefs they want. But when you have a movie that basically shoves down its messages into people's throats over and over and over again, then the movie falls very flat. And sadly, Jesus Revolution falls into that category of just shoving its message down over and over and over again. Yeah, this wasn't a terrible movie, but I really was not a fan of this one. 4.5 out of 10 or a C.
Yeah, I didn't see this movie because even as a Protestant myself, the most of the Christian stuff that I've seen has been kind of preachy and lacking in the production values.
Yeah, you're not missing much with this one, honestly.
Yeah. Next movie though is Creed 3.
Yes.
This was a kick-ass threequel. It's not without slow moments or predictability. I found the story about as emotional as the previous films, especially with its intense boxing sequences, music, and performances, especially from Michael B. Jordan and Jonathan Majors. If this is the last movie in the series, it's safe to say it ended on a high note as it gets a seal of approval.
This is one of the better movies I've seen this year so far. Yes, it does have a couple pacing issues here and there, and at times it does have a few and it does have its share predictability in it. But despite that, this was a really good film and a very satisfying conclusion to the Creed trilogy. And for Michael B. Jordan's first movie, he did a fantastic job with the way he directed this movie. It is a very well directed movie. Plus, the story had me emotionally invested throughout due to how well executed it felt. The writing was very good. The acting, especially from Michael B. Jordan and Jonathan Majors, were fantastic. The musical score was fantastic. The cinematography was fantastic. The editing was very good. And the boxing sequences were very, very well done. How it was choreographed, how it was directed, how it was edited and shot. Wow. Those were excellent sequences right there. And the ending, I really dug the hell out of too. And going back to Jonathan Majors one last time, this is one of those characters where you hate what he does in the film, yet as a villain, you can't help but as a villain, you can't stand what he does since he's a villain in the film. But at times, you find out about his backstory and you actually feel sorry for the poor guy. He's one of the most sympathetic villains I've ever seen in a movie, and that's rare. That's rare for a movie to do something like that. But but Creed 3 managed to pull it off really well. This is easily one of the better movies I've seen this year so far. It's a powerful and entertainingly knockout film from start to finish, and I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10 or an A-.
Our next movie, though, is 65, which was... Despite some good acting from both Adam Driver and Ariana Greenblatt, some decent production values and effects, and some thrilling action, ultimately, the thrills are few and far between, with most of the runtime dedicated to these two characters having generic chemistry as they wander around prehistoric times and sometimes seeing dinosaurs. As a result, I just barely connect with them, keyword being barely. This just feels like one of those straight-to-DVD movies that was inexplicably released in theaters. I wouldn't pay a penny on this and just wait until streaming if you're the least bit interested, but ultimately this gets a seal of mediocrity.
This is one of the worst movies I've seen this year so far. 65 is one of the most boring, lifeless, and reprehensible films I've ever sat through this year so far. This tried to be The Last of Us. This tried to be like The Last of Us mixed with Jurassic Park, yet it failed miserably at being that due to how poorly structured the story felt, and how lifeless and shallow the characters felt as well. Like, you don't care about any of the characters throughout the whole film, since they feel lifeless, paper thin, and shallow. And the worst, and another thing about the writing is that it's filled with really clunky dialogue. Really clunky dialogue as well. It's poorly directed. The other two actors, which are, this movie has 4 actors, and out of the 4, Chloe Coleman and Nika King were horribly wasted in this movie due to how not only poorly written their characters felt, but how they were given very little to do in the film, other than just to be the mother and daughter of Adam Driver's character, other than to be the wife and daughter of Adam Driver's character. Like, the score's a dull mess. The cinematography, especially, was I was also baffled at how dull and lifeless the cinematography felt, especially with the color palettes and horrible lighting. Like, Jesus. The editing was terrible, and it's also very poorly paced throughout. Even for a movie that's like 90 minutes, this movie felt like it was going on for 2.5 hours. That's how bad the pacing felt. And when we do eventually get to see it, and there's not a lot of dinosaur sequences in the film, yet they aren't that exciting, because when we do eventually get to see the dinosaurs in CGI, they looked horrendous. Like again, like the bear and Cocaine Bear, the dinosaurs look the CGI effects on the dinosaurs look like something that came out of the late 1990s through the early 2000s. And the ending was anticlimactic as well. An anticlimactic mess. Easily one of the worst movies I've seen this year so far. 1 out of 10 or a D-. Fuck this movie.
And our next movie is an even better, Operation Fortune. After over a year of delays, it's safe to say this was not worth it. While the actors do their best, they ultimately can't save a boring story that's hard to follow, action scenes that are few and far between, stupid editing and pacing of a tourist and snail foot race. I really hope the Covenant turns out better later this year, because this was a stain in Guy Ritchie's career that I'm giving the seal of disapproval.
Oh boy. Yeah, this movie. Yeah, so yeah, I'm in agreement with Søren on this one. Operation Fortune is one of Guy Ritchie's worst movies he's done in quite some time. The actors, including Jason Statham, Aubrey Plaza, and Hugh Grant, do their best, and the musical score and cinematography are very good. But it's unfortunate that those things couldn't save the film from being one of the most generic, boring, and convoluted movies I've seen this year so far. Like, my God. Like, the action sequences were not that exciting to watch because of how poorly edited they were, and how there's no tension. There's no tension to these sequences. And worst of all, the action sequences look like there's not a lot of it. And even when there is, they look like something that came from a video game. That's how bad it looked. And worst of all, other than the writing having terrible character development, the writing also had some of the worst line I've ever seen in the movie this year so far. Like you're not gonna believe the lines in the film. Like 9 minutes into the film, we see Aubrey Plaza's character, and she says, "Well, I don't want you to pee on me because I don't do that anymore." What? Oh, and if that's not enough, get a load of this other line. And it's uttered by Aubrey Plaza's character, the other guy, and Hugh Grant's character. And before Hugh Grant's character also utters the name, one says, "I guess I could use a nappy poo myself." And then Aubrey Plaza's character joins in and says, "I'll join you for your nappy poo." What was the point of those line deliveries? Was it trying to be funny? Because if it is, it's so forced and just juvenile and idiotic. And without a doubt, the plot twist reveal is just so obvious. It's just so obvious. It's especially Mike. Especially with it being Mike. I'm gonna have to spoil this twist because oh boy. So basically, the twist revealed that Mike is not a rival spy against Orson and his team, but also has some ulterior motives. What? How stupid and obvious. Yeah, I do not recommend this one at all. 3 out of 10 or a D+. Oh, God. Let's just get on with our last film.
All right, our last film is Scream 6. And this was even more the same as the last one. I will say the acting's still good. There are some decent kills here and there, and the twist who Ghostface is, I legit didn't see coming. However, like the last movie, it suffers from a lot of pacing issues, some weak satire, uninspired jump scares, and stupid decisions characters make for the sake of the plot. If you're a fan of the series, do see this one. But if you're looking for this franchise to go in a new direction, this ain't it. As for me, I'll give it the seal of accuracy.
This is a disagreement because I actually really enjoyed this movie. I actually really enjoyed Scream 6. Not only did I really enjoy this a bit more than Scream 5, but I also feel that it's a strong installment into the Scream franchise, and I found it to be fun, thrilling, and entertaining as a result of this. From Melissa Barrera, Dermot Mulroney, Jenna Ortega, and Courtney Cox were very, very good. The score was very good. I really enjoyed the story throughout. The writing was very good, especially with its satire, on like film trends on like fans' expectations, on like fan bases, and on film franchises. That was just how it satirizes the trends of like film franchises and the subversion of audience expectations. Those were fantastic. I thought it was fantastically written and clever, especially with its humor. And the kills, oh my goodness. The kills in this movie were some of the bloodiest and most creative kills I've ever seen in the Scream movie. Like, holy shit. The editing was solid. Excuse me. The editing was solid, and I did mention the kills too. So, other than the film suffered through a couple pacing issues in the middle, but the other flaw I have with the film is that I have to disagree with you, Søren. I was disappointed with the reveal of Ghostface. Like when we do see, I'm not going to spoil what happens, but let's just say the reveal of a certain character and as well as Ghostface felt a bit obvious at times. So and kind of underwhelming. So, but overall, I really enjoyed this movie. 8 out of 10 or a B+. And that's it for the movie reviews on today's podcast.
Wait, don't you have a movie you just saw last night?
We're going to save that for next time.
Fair enough. As for now, the 95th Oscars. Now, the nominees and winners I thought were significantly better than last year, mostly because I felt like they focused more on what was popular and great other than political stance. But but there are still some snubs here and there, and let's go over them, shall we? For Best Visual Effects, we have Avatar: The Way of Water, All Quiet on the Western Front, The Batman, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, Top Gun: Maverick, and the winner was Avatar: The Way of Water.
I'm not surprised, and I'll admit, even though Everything Everywhere All at Once had some of the best visual effects I've seen in the film last year, I kind of knew that Avatar: The Way of Water was going to get it. So, and to be fair, it did have amazing visual effects. So,
yeah, Everything Everywhere was my pick, but I don't know if I'd nominate All Quiet or Top Gun: Maverick because they were pretty seamless, but I'd probably nominate Everything Everywhere All at Once, as well as Nope or 3,000 Years of Long on there, but this was not a bad list. As for Best Film Editing, we have The Banshees of Inisherin, Elvis, Everything Everywhere All at Once, Tar, and Top Gun: Maverick. The winner was Everything Everywhere.
And I think it deserved it.
For Best Costume Design, we have Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, Babylon, Elvis, Everything Everywhere, and Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris. The winner was Black Panther.
Here's what I'll say about the costume. They were very well done, but I have to say that Everything Everywhere All at Once deserved the best costume of the year.
For me, it was probably Elvis. And you know what the ironic thing is? After Tom Hanks inexplicably won that Razzie, I was expecting this movie to at least win at least one Oscar, so that Wall Street wouldn't be the only movie with a Razzie and an Oscar. But no, Elvis got zipped, so I guess it's got to join the Godfather 3 club of the Best Picture nominees with 0 Oscars but 1 Razzie. Oh well. For Best Makeup, we have All Quiet on the Western Front, The Batman, Black Panther, Elvis, and the winner was The Whale.
which it absolutely deserved it.
Even though I probably wouldn't nominate Black Panther over Bones and all, or Crimes of the Future, but other than that, not a half bad list. For best cinematography, we have All Quiet on the Western Front, Bardo and Empire of Light. We also have Elvis and Tar. The winner was All Quiet on the Western Front.
And I can't argue with that, even though I felt Tar had the best cinematography of last year.
And I hands down wouldn't nominate Bardo or Empire of Light because those movies were mediocre at best. And plus, I can think of other movies that deserved it way more, like The Batman, like Blonde, or like Everything Everywhere All at Once, like Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah, exactly. Where were those nominations?
For Best Production Design, we have All Quiet, Avatar, Babylon, Elvis, and The Fabelmans. The winner was All Quiet.
Personally, my pick was for The Fabelmans.
Mine was Elvis again. For Best Sound, we have... Hold on. For Best Sound, we have All Quiet, Avatar, The Batman, Elvis, and the winner was Top Gun Maverick.
Well deserved.
For Best Original Song, we have Applause from Tell Like a Woman, Hold, which I've never heard of, Hold My Hand from Top Gun Maverick, Lift Me Up from Black Panther Wakanda Forever, This Is a Life from Everything Everywhere, and the winner, Natu Natu from Triple R.
It is a good song, but personally, I love the Lady Gaga song more.
And even though This Is a Life is a good song, I wouldn't say it's as memorable as other potential nominees like Chio Papa from Pinocchio, or New Body Roomba from White Noise, or even Sunny Off Summer from the Bob's Burgers movie, or Take a Look at Us Now from Lyle Lyle Crocodile. I felt those were a bit more memorable, but that's just me. For Best Original Score, we have All Quiet on the Western Front, Babylon, Banshees, The Banshees of Inisherin, Everything Everywhere, and The Fabelmans. The winner was All Quiet.
What was it for? I'm sorry.
Original Score.
Oh, original score. That should have went to The Fabelmans.
Yeah, or love it, or even though you hated this movie, I think Babylon was a bit more deserving. However, my real pick wasn't even nominated, The Batman.
Yeah. Honestly, I would replace Babylon with The Batman.
Or even The Whale.
Yeah, really.
Best animated short film, I don't give two shits, but My Year of Dicks, that's gotta be the funniest title ever. Best live action short film, I don't care. Best documentary, I don't care. Best international feature film, All Quiet on the Western Front. Moving on. Animated feature film, we have Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, The Sea Beast, Turning Red. The winner was Pinocchio.
Which it absolutely deserved it. Even though Marcel was my personal favorite, I actually did want Pinocchio to win, especially with Guillermo del Toro's brilliant statement on animation. And yes, animation appeals to everyone, not just kids, adults too. Listen to Guillermo del Toro.
Yeah, really. For adapted screenplay, we have All Quiet on the Western Front, Glass Onion: A Nice Out Mystery, Living, which I just saw Living early today. It's a really good film.
I loved it.
And Top Gun Maverick, and the winner was Women Talking.
I mean, if The Whale was nominated, I would have wanted to see it win. But Women Talking, I feel deserved it. But that's just me.
Yep. Moving on. Original screenplay. We have The Banshees of Inisherin, The Fablemans, Tar, Triangle, Sadness. The winner was Everything Everywhere. Even though Banshees was my pick, I can't deny Everything Everywhere screenplay.
Yeah, really. Seriously, this was the best screenplay of last year, in my opinion.
For Best Supporting Actress, we have Angela Bassett for Black Panther, Han Shao for The Whale, Carrie Condon for Banshees, Stephen Hsu for Everything Everywhere, and the winner was Jamie Lee Curtis for Everything Everywhere.
I was very surprised by that pick. I thought Stephanie Hsu was gonna get it, but Jamie Lee Curtis, I thought she was incredible in that film, and I'm glad she won.
Supporting actor, we have Brian Gleason for The Banshees of Inisherin, Brian Tyree Henry for Causeway, Judge Hirsch for The Fablemans, Barry Keoghan for Banshees of Inisherin. The winner was Kiwi Kwan
for Everything Everywhere All at Once. He deserved it.
Again, even though my pick would have been Brian Gleason, Kiwi Kwan deserved it in spades.
Yeah, really.
Although I will say, I've never really heard of Causeway, so I'd probably replace him with Ray Fiennes for The Menu, but that's just me. For Best Actress, we have Kate Blanchett for Tar, Anna de Armas for Blonde, which is pretty bizarre seeing how Blonde won all the Razzies, but she deserved it here. We have Andrea Riseborough for To Leslie, Michelle Williams in The Fablemans, and the winner was Michelle Yeoh.
Which she absolutely deserved it.
Even though my pick wasn't even nominated, that's Danielle Deadwyler for Till, but Michelle Yeoh is a close second. And now, this is the award that matters the most. Best Actor. We have Austin Butler for Elvis, Colin Farrell for The Banshees of Inisherin, Paul Mescal for Aftersun, Bill Nye for Living, and the winner, Brendan Fraser.
Absolutely deserved it.
Best Director, we have Martin McDonagh for Banshees, Steven Spielberg for The Fablemans, Todd Field for Tar, Ruben Ostlund for Triangle of Sadness. The winner was the Daniels for Everything Everywhere.
Absolutely deserved it.
Although even though I definitely would place Ruben Ostlund for Triangle of Sadness, because that to me is the most overrated film of the year, I'd easily replace him with Matt Reeves for The Batman.
Fair enough.
As for Best Picture, we have All Quiet, Avatar, Banshees, Elvis, The Fablemans, Tar, Top Gun Maverick, Triangle of Sadness, and Women Talking. The winner was Everything Everywhere.
Hell yes.
Even though I am kind of upset that Avatar, Triangle, and Women Talking got nominated, even though The Batman, Pinocchio, The Menu, Nope, and The Whale got shut out, but that doesn't matter. Everything Everywhere is one of my all-time favorite movies, and the fact that won the top honor is just almost bizarre.
Yeah. Yeah, but it was well deserved.
Yeah. And that's it for that topic. And the next topic, since this actor has recently retired from acting, I figured I'd list off my top 10 favorite Bruce Willis performances of what I've seen. My number 10 is Over the Hedge. Number 9 is Moonrise Kingdom. Number 8 is Looper. Number 7, Pulp Fiction. Number 6, Unbreakable. Number 5, The Sixth Sense. Number 4, The Fifth Element. Number 3, 12 Monkeys. Number 2, Sin City. And number 1, Die Hard.
Number one would definitely be Die Hard, with like The Sixth Sense and Moonrise Kingdom coming in at second and third for me.
Now I just want to go over this real quick before we get to our topic. As for his worst performance, it took me a long time to figure it out, about a tenth of a second, because I just saw this movie the other day, and Cisco and Ebert, you were too nice. Rob Reiner's North.
Oh, fuck that movie. Fuck that movie, man.
Yeah. As for our final topic of the night, our updated best films of 2022.
Yeah, I was, admittedly, guys, I was not impressed with the way my best of 2022 list turned out, especially when there were two films that eventually made it on my best of list that I didn't get a chance to see until now. So that's why I'm doing an updated. We're doing an updated list.
As for my honorable mentions, I have Wendell and Wild, Duel, Breaking, The Northman, Tar, Phantom of the Open, Kimmy, Till, Elvis, Brian and Charles, and this just missed the top 15 this year. I still really like the movie, but it's not really rewatchable compared to other movies. And as Andrew Dominic's Blonde.
Okay. My honorable mentions are Jackass Forever, Elvis, Bros, Barbarian, Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris, A Tie Between Pearl and X, Belle, Hallelujah, Leonard Cohen, A Journey, A Song, She Said, Turning Red, The Woman King, Turning Red, The Woman King, After Yang, Emily the Criminal, Triangle of Sadness, and two of the best foreign language movies I saw last year, Happening and All Quiet on the Western Front, Bones and All, Glass Onion and Knives Out Mystery, After Sun, Till sadly missed the list as well. I still love that movie though. I think it was one of the best. It was definitely one of the best ones I saw last year. But it just missed the cut. And finally, my favorite documentary film of the year missed the cut too. Moonage Daydream.
All right. My number 15 is a tie because they're both great comedy films that I put close together in the original list. So I figured, screw it. Why not just have them tie? Number 15, a tie between Beavis and Butthead Do the Universe and Weird the Al Yankovic Story. Number 14, one of the most underrated films of the year, 3,000 Years of Longing. Number 13, one of the most overlooked, Fall. Number 12, Emily the Criminal, another overlooked film. Number 11 is Nope. Sorry I don't have the clip this time. Number 10, The Bad Seeds of Inisherin. Number 9, All Quiet on the Western Front. Number 8, Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. Number 7, I am currently kicking myself for not having this in the top 10, Top Gun Maverick. Number 6, The Batman. Number 5, The Menu. Number 4, The Fabelmans. Number 3, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. Number 2, The Whale. And number 1, Everything Everywhere All at Once.
All right, so my top 15. All right, so my top 15. Number 15, The Batman. Number 14, Jordan Peele's Nope. Number 13 and 12 are animated films. Some of the best I've seen last year. Puss in Boots, The Last Wish, and Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. Number 11. Now, number 11, 10, and 9. I had a hard time figuring out which one was going to be on the list since I loved all three of those movies. And you guys are going to be shocked that this actually is number 11 instead of in the top 10. But I still love the movie regardless. The Northman. Number 10, The Menu. Number 9, Living. Number 8, Women Talking. Number 7, The Whale. Number 6, Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. And my top 5, number 5, Top Gun Maverick. Number 4, Tar. Number 3, The Banshees of Inisherin. Number 2, Steven Spielberg's The Fabelmans. And my number 1 film of 2022, I think you and I are in agreement with this one. Everything everywhere, all at once.
You're gosh damn right.
Yes.
Now, before we say goodbye, I have a bit of an announcement to make. So, back in mid-October, you might remember me talking about a then upcoming fan fiction I did entitled My Little Pony the Storm King, which was meant to be a direct adaptation of the movie with many of its issues resolved. You might also remember that it was meant to jumpstart a trilogy of My Little Pony stories to prelude most of the fanfictions in the cartoon cinematic universe, or the Cartooniverse, if you will, or if you really want to feel tacky, the Charlotte and the Chocolate Factory cinematic universe. Well, I'm here to announce that I'm currently developing the second installment of this trilogy, and I'm proud to announce the title. So, Nick, you seen this?
I don't. Oh, wait a minute. Here it is.
Yep. Coming soon to my DeviantArt is My Little Pony, The School of Friendship. And I have a little synopsis for it too, and it's as follows. After the events of My Little Pony the Storm King introduce our favorite colorful ponies to a world outside Equestria, they decide to open a friendship school to spread their messages about peace and harmony to different creatures around the globe. But as an all too familiar threat looms around Equestria, they are forced to question who to trust in terms of running the school and protecting their land and its people. So yeah, coming in either this month or in May, My Little Pony, The School of Friendship.
Nice.
Oh, and speaking of My Little Pony, I have thought about this for a little bit, and upon further thought, A Matter of Principles might be my least favorite episode of the show. Mostly because...
Thank you.
And don't get me wrong, Yakety Sax is pretty bad, but at the very least, you can skip it. A Matter of Principles, however, is unskippable, because technically it introduces the artifacts that Cozy Glow would later use in her machine to drain all magic. And the fact is, its message is pretty much destructive, especially for a kid's show.
Yeah, really. Yeah. Looking forward to seeing that fanfic whenever you make it, Søren. Hope it goes well.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Right. Well, guys, that's it for tonight's podcast. We hope you guys had a fun time watching it. I certainly did, and so did Søren. We're gonna be back. We're gonna be back at the end of the month to do episode 37 of the podcast, so that we can catch up on like the remaining March and the first half of the April movies. So yeah, and we're gonna do a updated list of the updated remake of the top 10 of the best films of 2020.
Otherwise known as the best movies of the worst year ever.
Yeah, really. Yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed tonight's podcast. I sure as hell did. Thank you, Søren, for joining me on tonight's podcast and for creating this whole podcast too. And be sure to subscribe to Søren Saunders on Søren the FilmBrony. The link is in the description below on his YouTube channel. Give him the love he absolutely deserved. He absolutely deserved. He's a very good content creator. And until we meet again for episode 37 at the end of April, hope you guys have a nice night and have a good night. Take care and happy Easter, everyone. Take care.